Hi class. So I'd like to start my speech with a quote from Carlos Ruiz. Barcelona is a very old city in which you can feel the weight of the history. It is haunted by history. You cannot walk throughout the streets without feeling it. Um, and FC Barcelona was founded over 100 years ago and has a very rich culture and history to it. And knowing about it will let you better interact with its community and people that follow it. And uh, the first I will talk about the players. First I'll talk about the background and the history of Barcelona, and then I'll talk about their players and their accomplishments throughout the year, and lastly I will talk about the biggest rivalry in soccer. Um, First I will discuss the history and more current information. So, in an article called FC Barcelona History, published in 2013 by an anonymous author, there's mentioning when the myth was born, and this myth was, of course, Barcelona, which was founded November 29th of 2013 by a Swiss international named Johann Gamper, who actually founded many different clubs throughout his lifetime. And their first game was against actually a group of Englishmen who just happened to be living in Barcelona at the time, and they lost that game. And this was played in a cycling track, like for bicycles and stuff like that, because they hadn't built their stadiums yet. And after that, like about 20 years after that, they built their first stadium, which only held about 6,000 people. And then they moved to their more newer stadium, which was Les Cortes, which is like the cathedral soccer they call it sometimes, and it held like 30,000 people, which is a big number at the time. And it eventually got renovated to 60,000 people. And during the 30s, after their president died and their founder, and due to the Spanish Civil War, they had a lot of fallbacks with the dictator, so this club suffered a lot. This club is considered to be one of the most popular clubs in the world. According to Mikel Placer, who wrote Road to the Top of the social media back in 2013, they have over 100 million followers throughout social media. And also this is their newest stadium, the Camp Nou, which holds about 100,000 people. So now that we have talked about some background, we can talk about the players and their accomplishments. So throughout the years, Barcelona has been able to capture some of the big name players like Ronaldinho and Diego Maradona, but now it comes to like the new kids, which is Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, which according to Robert Bouley, who wrote MSN, they have scored back in 2015. They scored 122 goals, being one of the strongest and most unstoppable strikers in the world. Barcelona has been the only, according to an article called "Everything You Want to Know About FC Barcelona" in 2013 by an anonymous author. They are the only club to have qualified for the European competition since its creation back in 1955. And also, Messi has now won 5 Ballon d'Ors, which makes him the most the biggest winner, I guess, overall in history. And lastly, after we have talked about the big names and players, I would like to talk about the biggest rivalry, which is of course Real Madrid versus Barcelona. And this started out in their first game with a conflict between the players about some negative comments after Real Madrid lost their first game, and it switched to like a more political issue in the 1930s because the dictator of Spain didn't really like Barcelona because it was more of a rebellious side, so he had their president executed. Now, of course, it switched more to like a soccer situation, right? And according to Benjamin Morris, who wrote an article called "Is Messi versus Ronaldo Bigger Than the Super Bowl?" back in March of 26th of 2015, about 400 million people watch El Clasico, which is what it's called, this game in between these two teams. And recently, the point of this rivalry is who's the best player, Ronaldo or Messi, has been the big question, and that led to the rivalry, more current rivalry. And this has recently been answered by Messi and Barcelona, as they have won the last two competitions by 4-0. And knowing, finally, now that we have learned all about the history of Barcelona, you'll be able to better interact with people from that area. So knowing about its history will allow you to understand the fans easier and interact with their community more. And first, I talked about some of the background information and history of Barcelona. Secondly, I talked about players and their accomplishments. And lastly, I talked about FC Barcelona and Real Madrid and the rivalry. And Barcelona's slogan is Más que un club, which means more than a club, which came about after the Spanish Civil War, because it was Barcelona became a sign of rebellion and freedom from kind of like the dictatorship, because they wanted to fight for separation. That's why.